eventually.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think for maybe Shezi, it might be different for you, but just walking us through your inspiration of starting and what age and sort of how the climate was when you started.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah. For me, starting out, I think it was a phased start. Really, there was a time when I was just in school, just looking for ways to make pocket money. So there was the almost the circumstantial part, and then but then things got really serious when I was also a little bit older. When I was in my 20s, I was 26 at the time. So, and I was already a graduate from the University of Cape Town, and I'd done almost 5 years of management consulting. But I had that frustration of saying, I look around, I've got so many ideas that I want to do. And sometimes I see some of my best ideas, I see someone doing them while I'm sitting in my cubicle, at work. So all that, it was like FOMO, like fear of missing out. It's like, I need to be out there, I need to be out there, making money, bringing my ideas to life, so then fortunately at the time I was still young and unmarried and I didn't have a dog or a cat to my name.
No stress in life as of yet.
So to really pull the plug on the umbilical cord of a paycheck and salary was easy, so then right. I was able to take my pension fund and some savings I had acquired and be able to start.
And I think what's so interesting hearing both of your how your journeys, it was quite organic. And I know Shezi, because we've spoken at length about how you started, but I know you had family members who sort of had entrepreneurship and you sort of watched them as well. So I wanted to understand, what was that familial support like, especially when you started? What was the reaction of your close networks when you said, I'm becoming an entrepreneur? Sorry, I think his mic is
There's 13 of us on here and we pay so much money to a PR company.
Hi, everybody. Could you please mute your microphones? Thank you.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Shezi.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah. Yes. So when I was eventually getting out as a 26-year-old, there was, my mom was late, so there was no mom to complain to me about. But my aunt was the one who said, as any concerned parent would, like, why would you leave such a great job, because they could see, the fruits of a good paying job, the nice car, and and then they think I'm trying to make myself poor, so there was that. But I think for me, having grown up with parents and grandparents who were very entrepreneurial, it's and also having tried a few things along the way, it made it I refused to give myself options. I was like, I'm not giving myself options. There's no plan B. I'm not gonna do this thing on the side, a side gig, blah blah blah. I was like, if I'm gonna do this and give it, I need to be able to give it my best brain, and the best brain is always available between 8 and 5. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think for you, Dina, was that sort of the same thing? Shezi's mentioned his grandparents had an entrepreneurial mindset. How did you sort of get your support, and where did you get it from?
Well, on one side of my family, they're all doctors. So like business and entrepreneurship is like a very far-fetched idea, from the traditional,
prestigious career of being a doctor. And so so my dad, when he ventured out of medicine and out of that track, that was very new for the family overall. And my dad pursued a career, a corporate career. And he was very big on encouraging me to also join the corporate world, you know, after graduating and having a good education and all of that. That was the natural step. And he was just so surprised when I told him, no, I know what I want to do. It's not corporate. I want to do my own thing, and I want to pursue this project and build this organization. And of course, you know, for my dad, he felt like I could be making so much more money,
right,
in world and all of that, much stress, and you know, into the unknown and uncertain career of running your own thing, you know, with all the stress that comes with it and the uncertainty that comes with it. But I was pretty stubborn, and I kind of knew what I wanted, and I pursued it. And of course, I got all my dad's support and my family's support all the way, you know, all the way through while I was growing the organization. But for sure, you know, in the beginning, there was a lot of these question marks, you know, and doubts of why I would take this difficult path. But when you reap the results at the end, it's well worth it.
It's interesting because a lot of our entrepreneurs that we work with, and a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, family plays such an integral role. And the natural step is that you study, you get your degree, and you get a job. And once you deviate from that path, it's like your shocking ancestrals, you know, and everything. And so I kind of wondered, I know both of you went to university. How important was going to university in your entrepreneurial journey? Now that you look back, do you think it was important, or it was just time wasting in your opinion?
Yeah, let me start. So for me, I think going to university was important. You know, like I would really encourage everyone to go there. Okay, fine. Maybe you don't stay there the whole 4 years, but but you know that I think the varsity teaches you a few things. One, it's unlike school where there is this teacher's favorites and varsity, you go there, you attend a lecture. If you don't want to attend the lecture, you can stay in your dorm the whole time. If you can read on your own and attend the tutorials and write exams and get your duly performed mark, you can write exams and pass. So which is like almost halfway through what life is all about. Deadlines, meeting deadlines, and I've seen that, especially when I'm employing people as an entrepreneur, I think people who have an appreciation for pressure, you know, because varsity is supposed to also break you. And when you got that deadline, you know, when you got a team that you're working as a team, on a project, and there's a useless member of the team who's just sponging off everyone's efforts and expecting to get the final mark at the end. You know, that halfway prepares you for real life, you know, because that's how real life is, you know. So for me, it was great. But most importantly, one of my first few customers when I started my first business, which was the spray painting business, when I left corporate, my very first few customers were my old varsity mates. So these were guys now who are working with cars that I could, like, hey, let me fix your car. And what I've also found is that in this network of people I was at school with, I can pick up the phone now and I can find an actuary who's heading up a big department in a bank. Right. I can find an engineer who's the head of something at one of the big SOEs at the Department of Minerals and Energy. There's a director general or something there who was someone that I was in class with, you know. So so from a later on in life perspective, I find it really useful from a network point of view to say, these are my mates. These are people that know me when I was still very poor. And there's a trust element, you know, that, you know, Shezi, when we were still, you know, surviving on bread alone, you know. So then that's trust over time, over that 4-year period, is something that is hard to negate. It's hard. I've found for myself, the people that I knew from then, when I'm wanting to talk business, I can do in 3 minutes what other people can do in 6 months, you know.
Right. And for you, Dina, do you have sort of the same understanding of your networks and university and how it played into your entrepreneurship journey, or does it differ?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I studied something and worked in something totally different. And I think it's the case for a lot of people that whatever you're studying in university, sometimes you're not using it when you're working. And I think now with what's going on in the world, there's definitely a shakeup to the education system, full on from what we're seeing from schools, a shakeup on the university, and let's see how that unfolds. But I definitely do agree with Shezi. One of the key factors that I definitely took out of university and that whole experience is the strong network, that community network, exactly like you were saying, Shezi. You build such strong lifelong ties with friends, and who become your community, who become your network. And that bond is really unbreakable, and it's fantastic to see how years and years will pass, and you meet up, and it's like where you last left off. You pick up where you last left off, and it really helps in building trust, you know, going forward with any business deal that you want to make, with any project that you're working on, with people you're recruiting, references, anything, you know, that kind of network, that strong network, it's irreplaceable.
I'm so glad that both of you actually mentioned close networks, because I think a lot of our young entrepreneurs that we work with, the idea is that what hinders them from starting a business is the lack of funding. And we sort of we're trying to debunk that, because young entrepreneurs, like you both have mentioned, you especially Dina with you, like you mentioned that it was hard to start the conversation because of your age. And we're trying to tell young people that you can start. Your close networks are your customers. Basically, you need customers in order for you to actually have a functioning business. And I kind of wondered, for you in both your journeys, where did that funding conversation come into play? Was it the first thing that you were thinking about, or was it something that came organically as you were growing the ideas of your business?
Well, with my business, it's more of a, you know, we run it in a more of a nonprofit model. So we had to bring in a lot of sponsors, for example. And can you imagine the trust factor that plays such a role when you're, again, like 22 years old or 21 years old, and you're trying to, you know, grow this project into an organization and go out and convince sponsors to give you funding for these programs. And many of them won't take you seriously because you're so young. And when you're so young, you know, the trust, it's hard to build. You have to work twice as trust and twice as hard to build people's confidence in you. You know what I mean? And so I think this was the most challenging thing. You know, some people go, oh, it's so cute that you're working on that, you know, and you're like almost not taken seriously as a one-to-one. But I think it's the confidence you project and the passion you project and what you're working towards really plays a factor in convincing the people in front of you that, okay, this is someone I can work with, this is someone I can trust, this is someone I can take seriously, this is someone I can partner with moving forward. And I think that's so important and crucial for any young person venturing out, to project this confidence, clarity in what they're doing, the focus, because that builds trust and respect. And that is what will build your reputation going forward.
That's great. Shezi, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think for me, from a funding point of view, okay, there wasn't sort of close friends that I would say helped me with funding for my business, but for the initial sample of customers, that really helped. But I will say, though, that there has been times where I've had to call up a friend of mine and say, hey, my man, I need 50,000 rand just to pay the payroll for this week. I will pay you next week when the money has arrived from XYZ people who owe me money.
Right.
Those close friends, some of them who know me from ages ago, are able to just say, yeah, sure, no questions asked, no credit application, 3 months bank statement and financial statements. They just say, okay, bank details, and then the money is in the bank, and then the salaries are paid, and then life goes on as normal. So it's been useful in that sense.
Having the closeness around.
Yeah,
I think
you need
so
that.
Yeah, you definitely do. And I think, especially if you're starting out young, like you both mentioned, the trust and the confidence that you need sometimes really comes from the people around you in order for you to continue what you're doing. And so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I mentioned that you both started early, and you're now older. I'm not an ageist. You're not old, but older. And so I was wondering, how has your how's your understanding of entrepreneurship changed since you were in your 20s, and how has it sort of evolved now? And Dina, I'll start with you.
So definitely it's not for everyone. Like that's for sure, right? But it's great to have. It'll help you in life, and it will help you in whatever career that you're in, because you think differently, and your mindset is almost different. So having said that, it's not for everyone. Thinking in that kind of way is a really good trait. But just reflecting on things, it's a tough journey. It's got a lot of challenges and a lot of obstacles. I feel like it's important for one to work on themselves, because this journey of being an entrepreneur, it's like going through an emotional roller coaster, and you grow so much and you learn so much from it, and it's almost like a whole journey of personal growth because you experience so much. You are faced with so many challenges. It's almost like all the time. It's one challenge after another, and how you're going to face it and how you're going to react to it. So it's key to have a mindset that is almost, flexible to roll with the punches, and to be able to overcome challenges, and to sustain yourself in this emotional roller coaster that you go through. It's definitely not for everyone, but it's interesting, I feel, to teach kids from a young age, to have an open mind, to have an entrepreneurial mindset, because I feel it will benefit them just in general in life, regardless whether they'll pursue entrepreneurial journey or not. I feel it definitely helps in the way you perceive things and the way you meet challenges in your day-to-day life.
Right. So that entrepreneurial mindset is really important, whether or not you become an entrepreneur. And that's actually what we believe at Anzisha. And so for you, Shezi, how has your understanding of entrepreneurship changed since you started your first business?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I thought, and in fact, when you are young, you always think that somehow when I'm older, when I'm 40, when I'm this, then I'll be bolder and I'll take bigger decisions and I'll be wiser, etc. And I'll do greater things as I get older. Actually, as you get older, your tolerance for risks drops. So I think it's very rare to find a 40-year-old quitting their job and starting on the entrepreneurship journey. One, because there's just so much there. There's so much fear now. There's so much. You're so used to the custard and the jelly, and you can't imagine life with bread alone, So that's what I've found, So in when I was 20, I used to think that when I'm older, I can do bigger things. I can do like large transactions. Like billion rand transactions, be in the papers, blah blah blah. But like looking back in hindsight, like if someone had told me, Shezi, at 26, do the stuff that you want to do when you are 40. Do it now at 26. Had I listened to those people, I would have been far in life,
So you definitely think that starting early was really integral for your journey?
Absolutely. I think one for me, because it's also tougher being a first generation entrepreneur. First generation entrepreneur is like, I'm like serious where you're writing invoices and stuff. My mom and them didn't write invoices; they just collected cash. So and having to produce financials and all those other nice things. So really, I think having that early start, making mistakes at a small scale, is important. So that's the one major benefit that I've found. In that I was able to start and fail in the thousands of rands, and then lose $1 million here, lose $1 million there. But I think, I think after a while you develop this stamina, just like going to gym, entrepreneurship is the same thing. It's a muscle. It's a mental muscle, like Dina was saying. It's a muscle in your brain, where that's why you find people, like, if a person is a billionaire and they've made themselves a billionaire, if something happens and they lose that billion for some reason, you found that 3 years later, the person is back at billionaire level again, because his muscle is already trained at billionaire level. So for him to lift that weight is easier, compared to someone who's used to lifting, like 5 kilograms and stuff, Yeah, that's how I think.
And so, Dina, for you, do you share the same sentiment that you think it was important for you to start early in order for you to understand longevity?
Yes, I mean it happened so like organically, it's almost unplanned. It's just an opportunity that it came my way, and I just went for it full force at a time when it was quite challenging. I had just graduated, I had just gotten married, and I was about to have my first baby. And so I had, a lot, I was balancing and juggling many responsibilities. So a family and my firstborn, and I was a very young mom. So I had, 2 kids very early on in my early 20s, and juggling the business. And I was just very lucky to have a good family support system that allowed me to pursue this and to go for this. So I felt like I did everything early. I started the family early. I started the business early, and now that the business has grown and my kids have grown, now I find friends who are starting now, their careers or to pursue their businesses, and it's great to see and be able to address them. But it's definitely tough, because a lot of times you'll find yourself alone. When you're younger, and not a lot of people around you in your circles or in your networks are pursuing something at such a young age in terms of their own business or that kind of a journey. I had a lot of friends who were maybe pursuing corporate careers. So also it's hard to share, like look for someone to share like any ups and downs you're going through. And it's important to have, you know, like-minded people who are going through a similar journey that you can maybe connect with and share experience from. I think that's, but that was what was lacking for me at a young age, is that kind of a support network of like-minded entrepreneurs, because there weren't that many that I knew at the time. And so I feel that young people today are so fortunate that they have not only do they have like supporting organizations and mentors who are there for them, and accelerators and incubators, and you know, a network of an ecosystem that will support young people, anyone who has an idea to go forward onto their journey. And I think we didn't really have much of that in you know, for me growing up or pursuing this journey. We didn't have that, but I feel the young people today are very fortunate to have support systems available.
Right. And both of you have mentioned how arduous the journey has been and how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur. And I kind of wondered, when you've experienced failure, what traits have you mastered to allow you to overcome the failures that you've experienced? Shezi, I'll go with you.
Yeah, it took me a while to grasp this thing around failure. So one of the lessons I learned is that in fact, it was one of the famous sayings. I can't remember who said it, but he says, the businesses never fail. They just run out of money, you know. So because I've found, like, if you look at some of my businesses, I can't remember a date when I actually closed the door and like, okay, we are closed sign, you know. It's always like, okay, we're gonna park it until the environment turns, you know. It's almost like, you see in the US presidential campaign, like you find Kamala Harris and saying, I'm suspending my presidential campaign, you know, as if you're gonna restart it again, type of thing. It's not like you're gonna, okay, November the 7th, just before the elections, I'm gonna restart it again. No, you've suspended it and it's gone. So just also when they've run out of money, you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So you never close the doors. You just run out.
Yeah, because yeah. So, but then what has helped me as I get older is that I have to separate the two in terms of saying, okay, the business failed, not me. Okay, I'm not a failure per se, you know. The business failed, okay, one, because maybe I'm part of the reasons for the failure, but the failure is in the business, you know. I need to separate the two, you know. That's remember, the business has got its own ID number. It's a juristic person. I'm just a director in it, and then I'm not in charge of the exchange rates of the rand, dollar, what the president does, COVID-19, blah blah blah. I didn't cause all of that stuff, you know. So if all that stuff causes the business to fail, then I need to be able to clearly divorce the two and say, the business failed, I'm still a success. Now, what do we do next? Then the way I'm able to wake up in the morning with a smile on my face and with wind behind my back to take me one day more in this life.
And for you, Dina, so are you able to divorce the entrepreneur versus the business when it comes to failure?
Well, it didn't come easy. And in the beginning, absolutely not. This was full on my baby. and I was so emotionally tied to it, like it was a reflection of myself. So like anything that would happen, I would take it so much to heart, and it would stress me out, and it would, you know, all the ups and downs I was telling you about, like it really would affect me. If we're in a downward spiral, it would affect me very much emotionally because I was emotionally tied. So this is, you know, from the very early years going forward, like I felt so emotionally tied, and I'd suffer because of it, because it was like an extension of me. And so anything that would happen, even if it's outside our control or anything, I'd be so disturbed by it and affected by it emotionally. And it's only when I was able to, you know, detach the two, emotionally disconnect from it, that if exactly like what Shezi was saying, if things happen in the economy, it's out of your control. Don't beat yourself so much about it. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, our business is almost like our baby, and we are so emotionally tied, but it's important to do that emotional disconnect. Like, for example, we had a minister, someone very high, a very high ranking official, obviously, tell us once in the early years, what you're doing is a complete waste of time. Like, he totally saw it as a complete failure. And when you're young, you're very vulnerable to listen, especially, you know, to older people, especially people who are officials. And when, you know, when you're younger and more vulnerable, you can be susceptible to what they say. But what we found is it did the opposite, in that, you know, we felt like someone insulted our baby, you know, and we really wanted to to prove them wrong, that no, what we're doing is absolutely necessary, and we believe so much in our mission, and the importance of, you know, spreading our programs and all that. And lo and behold, it gave us the opposite effect, which was full-on drive and full-on, you know, it gave us the momentum to grow and create an impact and prove them wrong.
And you did. I'm glad you did. Imagine. And for you, Shezi, 14 businesses, how does that come about? Like, how do you keep going? After hearing no, having, you know, all the doors closed sometimes, how do you just keep creating more, really?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've come to benefit from is whenever I was doing some of these businesses, it's almost like I was preparing myself for what I'm doing now. So like I find, you know, the skills I picked up. For example, one of my businesses was when I was in my early 20s, was a gardening service. No, just cutting people's gardens, you know, run-of-the-mill stuff every week. But, you know, the skills one learns there, you know, it's customer service for one. It's the importance of annuity income, you know. So if I know that I've got a fixed contract every month for this person, and it doesn't matter if it's raining or shining, but or if I cut the garden once or 3 times or 4 times a week or 5 times a month, if it's a 5-week month, it doesn't matter. My invoice for this person is the same, you know. So those kinds of things, you know, like import and distribution. There was a time when I was importing and distributing condoms from the US into South Africa, you know. Speaking to retailers, getting my product listed and on the shelves, and, you know, the understanding, navigating the exchange rates, you know, pricing, and the exchange rates is fluctuating, you know, all that stuff, you know, even though it was stuff I was doing 10 years ago, you know. But if I'm looking at my business now, you know, it's stuff I use in this business, and I don't need to. I've made mistakes in those fields, so I know all the pitfalls in those. So now I'm this person who's gotten experience from here, from there, and I'm able to channel those into one. But that said, though, I must say that, you know, the importance of close mentors who have walked the same path helps a great deal in terms of repeating mistakes. You know, because you don't want to be repeating every mistake every other 10th person has made. You know, right. So really having that mentor pool of people that you just bounce off ideas with, give them updates, tell them of any new things you're thinking. Even if sometimes you don't listen to what they say, but just having said it to someone else and listening to what their feedback is. There's nothing wrong with ignoring feedback. That's what it's called. That's why it's called feedback. You know, it's not the 10 commandments. It's like feedback. So if someone says, okay, it won't work, yeah, sure, I've heard what he said, but I'm still gonna do it. You know, but thank you, and I'm still continuing. But at least I've heard. You know, so it's not like I walked in blindly. You know, so that's the one thing I've come to learn. Yeah, if I had done that all the time, it could have saved me a couple of million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking, yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned feedback. And speaking of feedback, Dina, in your field of promoting entrepreneurial education amongst young people and preparing them for the future of work, how receptive has been your community in understanding entrepreneurship as a viable career choice for young people, especially within the Egyptian sort of context?
Yeah, so we started in 2003, and in 2003, you know, entrepreneurship was a little known word, and culturally, even in our communities, we're very risk averse. We don't, as a culture, we don't like taking risks at all. And so a lot of families would encourage their children to pursue, you know, the prestigious careers of being a doctor or being an engineer, and to stay away from anything risky, obviously. And so when we started to promote these programs in schools and in universities, you know, a lot of kids caught that entrepreneurial bug, and a lot of university students caught the entrepreneurial bug, and many of them wanted to pursue it further. And actually, so we started seeing the change happening, and in 2011 a shift happened, and more young people wanted to start their own business but didn't know where to go for help and support and for funding. And so we launched at that point the accelerator our startup accelerated, where we seed fund them and invest in them and help them grow and scale their businesses. And it took off from there. But the most thing that we found created such a change in the community and mindset is the day that a TV show was produced in Arabic in Egypt on Shark Tank, the Egyptian version of Shark Tank. And when that was aired throughout Cairo, and millions of people started watching young people pitch their businesses to a panel of judges. And I was very fortunate to be one of those judges. And I was in absolute awe, because we had been working on spreading this culture since 2003. But in a day and a night of this program launching virally across the country and across the Arab region, everybody paid attention. Like, families started to see, oh, this is a serious career, where mothers and fathers were telling their kids, absolutely not. Are you crazy? You want to be an entrepreneur and waste your life and not make any money? You know, that shift started happening, and mothers and fathers started watching these young people and like win awards through this show and win the pitch and get money for their business to grow and scale and all that. And they became national heroes. And overnight the culture changed, and overnight the parents of these entrepreneurs who had been resisting so much and not encouraging them at all, you know, flipped 180 degrees and understood and supported supported their young entrepreneurs and supported their children in pursuing this. So the culture changed through highlighting success stories, and it was so beautiful to watch that happen.
That's amazing. And that just brings me back to what our organization is always trying to do, is trying to share these success stories of what entrepreneurship looks like for different people and how it affects their different stakeholders. And I guess like the Cairo, that Shark Tank thing must have been amazing to see.
Yes,
Really and Shezi, does that get you excited about the state of youth entrepreneurship here in South Africa? Is that shift happening? Has it happened, in your opinion?
Nah, I think in South Africa we're a lot behind. We are a lot behind. I think one, because the best brains in the country are sitting in corporate. Comfortable, in the office air conditioning. So in South Africa, like we have over, probably, I would say 3 million graduates. These are engineers. Technicians, etc., etc. In South Africa, it's the one country in the world where you find engineers, mechanical engineers, working at a bank, calculating loans and things. Why are we wasting all these really sharp minds? And it's really mostly for the comforts of now. I think South Africa, if I look at Kenya and a few other countries where the corporate sector, because the corporate sector, like they take all the sharpest brains and they pay them lots of money, and then you as a startup you battle to even find the average worker. So some of the best employees I've had are people who I took them straight from varsity before their salaries became too high, and I had to train them myself, and then I got the best out of them. But if you look at most of the skills that we've got that you need to drive entrepreneurship, a bunch of it is sitting in corporate and it's expensive. So in a startup, you find you bring in one person, that one person who's a CA or whatever, he earns all of your salaries. If you combine them, that's what he takes home.
Are you telling everybody to leave corporate for entrepreneurship, Shezi?
Well, the point I want to emphasize though is that entrepreneurs, you don't work for now. You work for a big payday that's gonna come when you sell the business. So and South Africans we still have a lot of work to do there, because even convincing people to say, hey, come work here. You're gonna get a shareholding in the business, like not a lot, but share options, and we're gonna build this thing and we're gonna sell it in 5 years. And when we sell it, you're gonna be a millionaire. Most people don't really buy it, which is sad. I think there's something we need to change there. But I think it's a countrywide conversation that still needs to be had, and I wish I would see that day when people really wake up to this thing, that the job of corporates is to serve shareholders. So if corporates have got lots of money, got R1 billion sitting around, they will look at a lot of other things. They'll say, okay, how stable is the country, exchange rates, blah blah blah, and then they say they're going to sit with R1 trillion of money. Like South Africa now, we're sitting with about 4 or 5 trillion rand in bank accounts of corporates. Now, me as a Shezi, if I had 4 trillion rand, I'll be investing it, I wouldn't be giving it back to shareholders, which is what most of these corporates do. They give it back to shareholders, which is the pension funds and all that, and then people are sitting unemployed, yet we got so much we could do to create jobs and make more money, because I'm not about jobs only, because as an entrepreneur, you need to be driven by profit as well, so, but I think in South Africa, that's the sad part, that's what's sad the people who can create jobs are sitting in corporate, and the corporates are sitting with money that can create jobs. So you got this almost unfunded startup ecosystem that can really take the country forward, but for me it's sad to look at. I wish there could be something I could do to change.
And I guess this from all your points that you've been making, this leads me into my next and final question on my end, and then we'll go into some Q&A questions. But so what advice would you give people who want to start a business? I think every time we always hear just start, but where do I start from? How am I going about, starting my own business or venturing into entrepreneurship? Dina, any advice for perhaps?
Yeah, like I mentioned previously, I think this generation more than any other are fortunate that there are people there to help you nowadays. There are organizations, there are mentors, and there are accelerators and incubators where you can get support. So I would say seek out these organizations in your ecosystems that are there to support young entrepreneurs. You have a lot of even competitions that you can apply to, and you'll get mentorship and you'll get support, and you can test out even your business as an early stage idea even. So even if you have just the idea and it's very, very early stage, seek out support, seek out a mentor, get their opinion, get them vested in your idea in terms of helping you and supporting you. That would definitely be step one. And so it would be definitely seek out support as a first step. And right. And going forward, I feel, now more than the previous years when we were on our journeys, there is way more support than there was back then. So I would say take advantage of that.
Great, thank you. And for you, Shezi? I think you're on mute. Or not? You're still on mute? Yeah. I think you're on mute, Shezi. Still on mute. Okay. One moment.
Get earphones, maybe.
Okay. We can continue with you, Dina. For a public question, somebody asked, I can't read. Somebody asked, would you be comfortable if your kids decided to pursue entrepreneurship?
Oh my God, that would be my dream if they would pursue entrepreneurship. It would be, I mean, they've been raised just, seeing me and seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs we support and mentor all the time. And they've been raised seeing so many different examples. So I feel it's kind of removed the first barrier that people go into initially, which is fear. The fear of venturing into that. And so I feel, my kids just being raised in this environment, I feel they wouldn't be so afraid to venture and give it a try and test it out and pursue it. Yeah, for absolutely, it would be a dream for me if they explore that. From a very young age, we'd encourage them with selling little things to their friends or at the park or whatever. To get a taste of how it feels like to produce something, to market it, to sell it, to make money, and they enjoyed it a lot. So let's see if they end up doing that.
So that's a yes for your kids pursuing entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Shezi, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So I think the advice you would give young people on how to start a business.
Yeah, always a tough one. But I think you were on the answer. It says just start.
But how?
But someone told me something which was profound the other day. Was say, in order to for a person wanting to start a business, one of the easiest way you can find out what that is to say, what do people always ask me to do? Like my friends, do they always ask me to bake a cake for them or cook for them? Do they always ask me to please have a look at this. I've got this idea. Can you help me? Can you just listen to it and tell me what to improve? So I'm finding there's a lot of people are always asking me that, now we're like, okay, here's this business of mine. What should we, this is what we want to do. How do we make it better? Are we on the right track? So if you're listening out to saying, what are people always asking me to do? Sometimes which I do for free, because I don't think it's work. If they always ask you, please give a keynote, please can you speak, or please can you be the MC? Those, if you're listening, those things are supposed to be telling you something. And then that, and if you listen hard enough, you are halfway there in terms of finding what you could be making money out of. Because in this case, if people are always asking you to cook for their birthdays or whatever, then you are halfway to your catering business. All you have to do now is just buy an invoice book and then start writing invoices.
You're halfway there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I would do. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So another audience question is, when hiring or building teams, what are one or two things that are non-negotiable?
For me, it's a culture fit. So from our experience, we used to, for example, find someone who is brilliant and perfect for the position and everything. But in time, we'd find out that they're not a culture fit for the organization, in the sense that they don't suit the culture we've been trying to promote, or, so they'll have friction with people. They're not communicating well as a team player. They'll be perfect for the position, but if they don't fit the culture, that is an instant no. And that's what we started interviewing for, is looking at their mindset, looking at, what their culture is like, and if they fit in culturally into our team and fit harmoniously. So that's something we always look for.
So you can have all the brilliance in the world, but if you're not aligned with the vision or mission, it's a no-go.
Yeah, exactly. And to fit within the cultural context, the culture that you're growing, whether it's whatever it is, like a family culture in your team, or there has to be chemistry, between everyone. And so there has to be a good fit. So that's what we look for.
Great.
Yeah.
How do you build systems so the business can operate even when you're not around? Shezi, I guess you can answer this.
Yeah. Well, that's always what's supposed to be done. But what I found is that the time to actually build the systems, as an entrepreneur, you need to create the time to find the time to write those training manuals, to write the process documents and print them and put them in a file and bind them and train the people on each and every one of them. In that way, by taking your thoughts and ideas and what you want done and how you want it done, by taking that and putting in a piece of paper that's on a shelf that someone can read then you've removed a bulk of your load from your shoulder. But what I found is that it's easier to just do the work than, and it's easier to just show someone how to do it than to actually say, okay, for someone to do an international payment in dollars to a person in the UK, this is the step-by-step screenshots of how it's done, and then putting that in file so that if a next person comes and they want to do an international payment, all you have to do is just use your finger and point there and say, see that file there, go pick it up and read it. It's going to tell you everything. Then you've bought yourself another half an hour, you know?
Right.
So
the training manuals and so documentation really is important.
Yeah, but I will say, you know, in a startup, it's supposed to be the easiest thing to do, but finding the time to do it is almost impossible, because then you find out, because you find out that, you know, end of the day you are tired, you know, like the time to create that manual, because if you had done it, you're gonna save yourself 10 hours next year or next month. But the temptation is always to say, rather, let me just show the person, just go to their desk and just show them, okay, click there, click there, click there. Whereas, you know, that's not creating something that lasts. The moment that person leaves, then they've gone with that information. So now you're going to have to, someone new comes, you want to show them again the same thing you spent 6 months teaching someone else, you know. So right. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I wish in fact, at a young age, I had started early, you know, just
build that muscle.
Documenting and compartmentalizing the information that's residing here, putting it on pen and paper. Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is, I'm sure you get a lot of requests to mentor or coach entrepreneurs. What informs you to choose to mentor or coach? Dina.
So definitely someone who is very committed about what they're doing. That's a key factor. Someone who's very serious and committed and, you know, ready to listen and be flexible, because a lot of times you can be mentoring or coaching someone and they're just focused on doing it this one way, and they don't want to have any flexibility, you know, in you know, exploring different opinions, or, you know, being flexible enough to maybe change something, maybe pivot in something, you know what I mean? So it's important that they're a listener, that they're committed, they're serious, and they're flexible.
I like that, those 3 traits. Shezi?
Yeah.
Do you mentor? Do you coach?
Oh, but yeah. So I do get requests for mentoring as well, but I think to agree to one, you know, it's a time commitment, you know. So I always tell the people that I would love to, but maybe informally, if you buying the drinks or if you are paying for the lunch, you can have 2 hours for free that you can decide, you know, what you do with that, you know. But that's normally how I do it, you know, just because, you know, there are people whose full-time job is to be mentors, you know. And for me, my full-time job is to be an entrepreneur, you know. So, which is why I try and just save whatever time that I have, you know, for the business and then for family, and then wherever I can, wherever I can get a free lunch from someone, you know, and yeah, sure. I don't send invoices then.
Like, you don't invoice. Oh, well, thank you both so much for joining me on this
Thank you,
conversation.
Didi.
It's been amazing.
Such a pleasure.
It's been amazing to hear your journey, and congratulations again for being inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's been a pleasure getting to know you both and sharing your stories. For those of you listening in, thank you again for joining us. And to hear more about Anzisha and read more about Shezi and Dina, please visit our website, Anzisha